I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're going to start this episode a world away, on a mountain, not a pitcher's mound. At an age when most pro baseball players are heading to retirement, R.A. Dickey was just starting to harness the mysterious force of the knuckleball. Then in the months before the 2012 season, he announces he's going to hike Kilimanjaro in Kenya. Yeah, it's not Everest, but it's no day hike. The New York Mets sent him a formal letter reminding him that if he were to get injured, it would void his new $4.5 million contract. He went anyway. He'd already dealt with a big payday being ripped away from him. And the climb was for charity, to raise money to fight human trafficking, something he continues to this day. R.A. Dickey, welcome to This is Nashville. And my first question is why?
Well, first, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me. Secondly, there's a lot of answers to the why, right? There usually always is. And Kilimanjaro was kind of the culmination of a lot of different things for me. One was I was a literature major in college, and Snows of Kilimanjaro and Hemingway were always a big fan, but it always kind of stuck with me. And as I began to get more and more of a platform, it was something that just kind of kept resonating in my mind. So I grabbed a group of guys and presented it to them and hooked up with a charity that I had gotten involved with called the Bombay Teen Challenge, which is an organization that rescues women and children from human trafficking in a place called Kamathapura, India, which is a real destitute, like 14 block. It's horrible. Anyway, we went over there and hiked and raised $250,000, and we were able to build a clinic right in the middle of the red light district of Kamathapura. So, and then I got to take my girls over there the following year to open it up and to kind of open their eyes to the world around them a little bit.
No regrets, I guess.
No regrets.
We now know that, if I have this timing right, your book was just coming out. That's called Wherever I Wind Up. But we also know now you were on the verge of your Cy Young season, right?
Yeah.
And about to be kind of crowned one of the best pitchers in baseball. What were you feeling like you needed to do this to unlock something with your baseball career?
That's a great question. I didn't feel like the book at all was related to baseball. It's not a baseball book. Now, baseball is kind of the thread that it bounces on and off of because it's kind of what I do vocationally, but it was much more about life and adversity and struggles and faith and all the things that kind of intertwine in everybody's life that they are forced at some time or another to deal with. And baseball was simply just a vehicle to kind of convey the points of some of those things. But I did not write that book in any kind of effort to, as a cathartic kind of, I'm going to unlock all this so that I can be a great pitcher. That organically just occurred with the work that I was doing personally with a counselor and trying to get through some demons in my own past, which I talk about in the book, as well as, refining my craft as a knuckleball pitcher. I mean, there's a lot of that in there too. Like I loved the work of it.
Yeah.
I loved trying to control something that was uncontrollable. Like all those things spoke to my spirit. And the book was simply right time, right place, right? Like it came out, and a lot of people would say it probably had something to do with you being able to pitch free out there, because there was a lot of stuff out there that I wasn't hiding from anymore and not carrying the burden of. And that did certainly help me, but it wasn't the end all to my success as a baseball player.
Will you feel weird if I read a little something here?
No, go right ahead.
Also, I love that you were a literature major. I'm not sure that I realized, but at University of Tennessee, you studied literature, so no one, and you've only written one book. I mean, where's the follow-up?
That one took a lot out of me.
All right. So this is kind of near the end. Once I kept secrets and hid and ran from the truth and ran from intimacy. Now I'm about as close as you can get to being an open book, feeling called by God to tell the truth and be authentic and love my wife and children and everything this imperfect man can summon. Once I lived in almost terminal shame, knowing why but never wanting to unpack it. Now I live in God's mercy, and I want to unpack everything, no matter how messy and hurtful it can be. The unpacking ultimately includes this book. Do you think that's a coincidence that when I was finally able to stop hiding as a human being, I also stopped hiding as a pitcher? I don't. So really, I mean, in reflecting on this, that sort of like unloading, being that open book, helped you on the mound.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that I would say helped me the most was learning the discipline of how to live the next 5 minutes well. I mean, to me, that was the epiphany that the book helped me discover. And until you get down and you start writing your story and you're honest about your story and you start sharing the story with people that you've hurt and have hurt you, you don't really get to the bottom of the things that you can unlock to really free you up to do some special things. And I don't mean in baseball, I mean in relationship. And so I was horrible at doing relationship. I had developed all these mechanisms to protect myself because I didn't want anybody to know me because of, and if you've read the book or even if you haven't, I talk openly about being sexually abused as a child and what that does to your growth as a human being. But, I was running from the horror and trauma of not only what that created, but the ideas that I had fabricated in my mind about what other people might think about that. And so I built all these mechanisms to protect myself from that. And it was about, 2011, which is when I kind of wrote the book for it to be published in 12, was me dealing with a lot of that, with a counselor, with my own self, with the written word, with journaling, with my wife, with all kinds of people that I'd tried to do relationship but failed. And ultimately 2012 came and it happened the way it happened.
Well, sexual abuse is not just a small part of the book. I mean, it's referenced several times, and there were a couple of different incidents that occurred. I'm wondering that trauma of your own from your childhood, is that what attracted you to the work in human trafficking? Different thing, but like I can see the why.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight, and that's exactly why. My story is so much different than the people that we rescue or impact. And I'm presently working with a local organization here called the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. But my wounds are similar, if that makes sense. So the trauma is different. The trauma looks much different. The stories are different. The journeys are different. But the wounds are inexplicably similar. And so that connection I felt God calling me into that space, and I wanted to be obedient to that. And so that was kind of where I got plugged in.
Human trafficking can mean so many different things. What does it look like in Middle Tennessee rather than, slums in India?
Wow. Well, it's a lot more cosmopolitan. And what I mean by that is it's not snatch and grab. It's not like the movie The Taken. Here it's a process. It's a grooming. It's the internet. It happens over a period of years most of the time. It's much more advanced in the sense that there are people that will groom a child, and our most vulnerable demographic are middle and high school students, if you can imagine that. The average age of a trafficked person in the United States is 13 years old. And that's the average age.
Traffic means what? That they end up in a life of some kind of what you might call prostitution?
Yes, or they're exploited in some way against their will. They're bought and sold for sex. They're bought and sold for their pictures. They're, and it happens all kinds of different ways. And, it can, and it affects every zip code. I mean, we've done rescues in Belmead. We've done rescues in Williamson County, all over the place. I mean, we're all over every zip code there is. There is no insulation from how and where and why it's happening.
Do people that you're rescuing, the word you use, do they know they're victims?
Sometimes they do. I would say the majority of the time you have to help them understand that they are victims.
Did you know you were a victim when you were growing up?
No, I didn't, and that's a great insight. I think if you suffer abuse early on, that's the context with which you look through, the lens with which you look through the world with. You're like, well, this is probably happening everywhere. And you want to be normal. You feel abnormal. You feel less than human in a lot of ways. But you want to feel normal. And so you do things that will help you feel normal, and that's to normalize the trauma. And to your point, you convince yourself that you're just like everybody else, right? And so that you start to build, like I said, all these ways to protect against the pain that came with that trauma.
If you're just joining us, I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest is the only knuckleballer to ever win a Cy Young Award, R.A. Dickey, born and raised here in Nashville, lives here now. I read your book years ago, and I don't recall it saying like where you actually played Little League. And as someone who played myself, I was wondering, were you a Jess Neely guy in Shelby Park? Were you Creve Hall, McCabe? Where were you?
I was really all over. I was Lipscomb Green Hills League. I was Creve Hall League, Babe Ruth. And then, I was a hired gun a lot of times where I'd get picked up.
So you early they spotted you. Were you pitching then?
I was a pitcher. I played shortstop too, but I think most people that were evaluating me saw my path as a pitcher.
So you were a hired gun early on. How did you end up at Montgomery Bell Academy?
Well, I grew up kind of at the corner of Thompson Lane and Nolensville Road is kind of the landmark. There's a Krispy Kreme right there that I would frequent all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know it. So I went to Wright Junior High. I went to Glencliff Elementary, and then got scholarshiped over to MBA. I would say that at the time, we were lower middle class, and I went to MBA, and my uncle had also attended MBA, so I knew a little bit about it and got in, and that was very, very helpful in kind of changing my stars as well. I mean, I needed that discipline. I needed the regiment and the routine of a place like that, and I would say it was life-saving in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, while you were going to this elite private school, life at home was pretty tough at times. Like, what were you going through at that time?
Well, I grew up a child of a divorced family. I had a sister. She ended up going with my mother while I stayed with my father, and he remarried. And it wasn't that, I wasn't cared for. I mean, I think I was cared for. I just felt so lonely. I was always so lonely. And, I never wanted anybody to get too close to me because of my past. So I would fake it a lot and really start a practice of being very unauthentic.
Are you saying guys you would have played baseball with at NBA would read this book and learn a lot about you?
Yeah. So most of my classmates would say to you, I had no idea. There was no way. That's how good I was at, being a chameleon. Like I could really kind of weave in and out of any dynamic, really.
Wow.
And so, it was real lonely. And I don't even know if I knew the hardship of it really until I reflected on it once I got healthy and came to terms with my story of origin and like all the things that you kind of do when you go through counseling and get help from things. But in the moment, I would just think, I would keep telling myself I'm a normal kid. I'm going to go to the YMCA. I'm going to play. And sports was always my sanctuary. Like, football field, basketball court, baseball field. Like I was always had a ball in my hand. I was always escaping. It wasn't, thankfully, well, I say thankfully, I mean, that can become an idol too, but like I didn't have an alcohol addiction or drug addiction, but I did escape in sports and found a lot of my value in performance, which created a whole lot of things too.
So you then go to the University of Tennessee, study literature, but you're good enough to get drafted by the Texas Rangers. In fact, first round, right? I mean, you're ready to collect this hefty signing bonus, something like $800,000. Then you get to your physical. What did they find?
Well, I think it's what they didn't find that was the problem. So I had gone through a 3-year career at UT and was an All-American and felt great. And I only say I was an All-American to tell people that, I was healthy and good, never missed a bullpen, felt great, played in the Olympic Games in '96, and was drafted by the Texas Rangers with the 18th pick overall, and thought I was on my way. I had agreed in principle to a contract that was close to $1 million. And then when I went down to my physical, every first rounder has to undergo a pretty comprehensive physical. And so when I went in to my physical, they had a suspicion that there was something wrong in my elbow. Now, I had never missed a bullpen or a start or anything. So I said, do whatever test you want. I don't have anything to hide. But they found that, to make a long story short, they found that I had the absence of what they call the ulnar collateral ligament, or the UCL, which is the Tommy John ligament that most pitchers have replaced and tear. I did not have that at all. And so it baffled Dr. Andrews down in Birmingham. Was like, I've never seen a case like this, man. Like, I don't know how you can turn a doorknob without having pain.
Wow.
And so I said, man, I've never been hurt a day in my life. And he said, well, the Rangers aren't going to see it that way. They're going to see that they got damaged goods. And so that's what happened.
Well, you bounced around the minor leagues, even played for the Nashville Sounds for a bit. Then one day, this is many years later after, if you think that the minor leagues is a glamorous life, read R.A. Dickey's book. And anyway, tough times. One day you're on the road and I guess you're in St. Louis is it the Missouri River story?
So that was Omaha.
Omaha, excuse me.
Right on the border.
My geography's maybe bad there. So one day you're on the road, you impulsively swim across the Missouri River. What was going on in your life at that time?
Well, I wouldn't say I swam across it. I tried to swim across it. I mean, I think that's the chapter in my book that most people want to talk about is the Missouri River chapter. And it was at a place in my career where I was still searching. I was doing a lot of work, on myself, trying to, I'd gotten to the bottom of myself. I felt like a number of times over the previous 2 or 3 years. I was a terrible husband. I wanted to be a better father. Like I felt like I could never figure it out. And I was starting to get help. But my skill set as a pitcher was diminishing, I felt like. And I was on the precipice of being released for the first time in my career. I'd been playing for a number of years, over a decade, and I felt like I was seeing the end in sight for the very first time. And that did a lot to me because that's, I was talking about this earlier, so much of my value was tied into my performance as an athlete. And I didn't have much value outside of that. And that was what I was working on. But the demons would still come back, right? And so I was at a place in that moment where I started the season horribly. I was with the Nashville Sounds, and we went in to play the Omaha Royals. And, there's a gambling boat that we stay on right on the river. So you can't gamble on dry land. You have to be on the boat. And so we were there. That was where our hotel was. And every year I'd go in there, I'd look at the Missouri River and I'd think, I think I can swim across that. And I finally got to the point where I was like,
as a 30-year-old man,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Well, that's how athletes are, right? They're narcissistic and they're egomaniacs, and they think they can do a lot of things, which is what makes them good athletes, ironically, a lot of times. But I thought I can do this, and so I kept telling my teammates, I'm gonna try. And I felt like I had nothing to lose. Like I was about to get released. I'd always wanted to do it, so I tried it. And if you read the book, you'll know it's the dirtiest river probably in the United States. It's got one of the strongest currents ever. And it had an undertow that I had no idea about. And I should have known by watching logs fly down, because my bedroom window overlooked the Missouri. Logs were flying down that river. And I thought, yeah, I can swim against that. I've seen Michael Phelps and do all that. So I tried it, and I almost drowned multiple times. And if it wasn't for a teammate, I would have died. But
it sounds like it was a life-changing experience.
Well, I think it was a baptism of sorts, really. Figuratively, it was. I went into the water as someone who felt like they didn't have anything to lose. I came out of the water after the experience thinking, I feel like God's got something for me. I should not have survived that attempt, like to cross it. And I did. And I called my wife afterwards and I said, man, things need to change. And I don't know what was preventing me previously from making that commitment, even though I was getting help. I was still afraid to step all in. And after that, I started the year 1-4 with like a 7 ERA.
Not good.
Not good. And I was the last man on the totem pole. So if there needed to be a move made, I was going to be the move. I was going to get released. And at that point, I had committed to being a full-time knuckleball pitcher. This was 2007.
Right.
And that night, the night that I fought my tail off to try to survive swimming back to shore, I did not make it across. Almost drowned. Had to have a teammate make a miraculous effort to save me. And I had to pitch that night out of the bullpen. And I threw incredibly. And I should have never thrown incredibly. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was confused. Threw great. And from that moment on, I was like 11-1 and won the PCL Pitcher of the Year from that moment forward. And that was kind of, call it what you will, but I felt like, God said, I got something else for you here. And you need to step into it.
All right, physical challenges, life-changing for you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll learn all about the craziest pitch in baseball that almost nobody throws from the master, R.A. Dickey. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Hi, I'm Nina Cardona, and this may sound a little weird, but a big part of my job is thinking about you, how you get your information, what you need to know in order to stay on top of what's happening in our community, about what you value and prioritize. And now, during the Spring Fund Drive, it's your turn to think about how you keep this news service up and running as a source for the journalism that you and all of your neighbors need. Do your part by making a gift right now at WPLN.org or with a call to 615-760-2010.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. I asked Mary Mancini, who's standing behind the glass over there producing this episode, to see if R.A. Dickey would throw me a knuckleball. And the message came back that he'd rather not. And, maybe he'll just show me the grip, and we'll do that sometime here. But now that I have spent, in preparation for this, more time watching YouTube clips from you and other knuckleballers, I want to thank you for saving me from a black eye, because the knuckleball is so unpredictable that even top major league catchers have trouble getting it in their mitt. So this is mostly radio, although there's also video going now. Would you mind briefly showing us what your hand is doing with a knuckleball?
Well, sure. You have what you call the horseshoe of the baseball.
Yep.
And so, the misnomer is that you throw a knuckleball with your knuckles. You don't. You throw it with your fingernails. And so I would always dig my fingernails in right behind the seam of that horseshoe. And you don't want any of your fingers touching the seam because that promotes spin. And I would try to throw it and release it at the optimum time where I could get it to rotate about a quarter of a revolution from the time it left my hand to the time it got to the catcher's mitt. And when you've been taught as a conventional pitcher to impart spin on baseball your whole life to manipulate its movement, I had to unlearn that mechanic and relearn a mechanic that could produce a good knuckleball. And that was really, really difficult. And I started that journey in 2004 when I, had run out of gas as a conventional pitcher. But that grip that I just showed you was the first kind of change that a guy named Charlie Huff made in my knuckleball journey. He changed my grip from what I was throwing it to that. And there aren't any, like you said, you pointed this out earlier, it's not like there are 100 knuckleballers on earth. I mean, there's only a few, literally. There's literally only a few knuckleball pitchers on the planet. And so it's not like I could go to my pitching coach and say, hey, man, help me here.
Right.
There was only some specialized people around the country that can help, and that's it.
Well,
he was one of them.
How did they convince you? I think the story was it's 2005. You'd been pitching in AAA, and then I think Oral Hershiser or something. Who came to you to sit you down and say, listen, if you're gonna have any future, you're gonna have to learn something new like the knuckleball.
You're right. Oral Hershiser was a part of that. They had seen me throw a knuckleball just playing catch, and it's one of the reasons I didn't want to play catch with you.
You're playing around.
I'm just playing around in the outfield with another player.
Okay.
And I'm throwing the knuckleball to him, and it's ricocheting off his body, right? Like he can't. Yeah. And Oral Hershiser's walking behind me saying, "What is that? What are you throwing there?" I said, "It's just a knuckleball." My grandfather taught it to me, and I messed around with it my whole career because it was like a circus pitch, like it was an anomaly. Nobody could catch it. People wanted to see it, and he said, "Man, you need to implement that in your arsenal." So that was the beginning.
So you're saying this legendary pitcher, Oral Hershiser, who's now coaching, he's looking and is mystified. I mean, it's not like even great pitchers pitch this at all.
Right. Like you said, there's never been a Cy Young Award winner that's thrown a knuckleball. So it's not like a pitch that's a staple in everybody's arsenal. I mean, they don't even know how to throw it mostly.
And most of these pitchers, like yourself, you are only throwing knuckleballs. Like you move to primarily maybe not primarily, almost exclusively throwing a knuckleball?
The best days for me as a knuckleball pitcher is about a 90% knuckleball rate.
Yeah.
So 9 out of every 10 pitches I throw is going to be a knuckleball. And that's the beauty of the pitch, is that you can throw it that many times and it might do that many different things.
Yeah.
If I don't know where it's going, there's no way the hitter knows where it's going. I just needed to find a way to harness it in the strike zone somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was my journey. The physical part of this is I had to figure that out. I had to figure out what speed, the release point, where my hand needed to be in relationship to my knee. Like all the mechanics of the technique, I had to relearn. And it took a lot of people who loved me well, who poured into me, to teach me some of the secrets around that.
And I'm guessing, you must have changed the windup. Your windup looks kind of like slow and a little stilted.
Yeah.
I don't know if it
Very
changed.
rigid. It did. Yeah. It changed completely. It went from and there's still a rhythm to the pitch, but it's much more mechanical. I needed my arm to be in the right spot. I needed my hand to be in the right spot. And so there wasn't a lot of latitude for the minute movements in my mechanics. So I had to be real rigid with it. And that's what if you YouTubed it, you would see, man, that guy looks like a robot out there.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of it in prep for this. Also found this. You were on the podcast of your former Mets manager, right? Terry Collins.
Yeah.
He told you about your catcher who would kind of listen in on how the opposing team was getting flustered by these pitches that just really made him look silly.
After, I don't know, 4th or 5th inning, he said, Terry, the hitters are talking to themselves in the batter's box. And you threw a knuckleball to a right-handed hitter who dove out of the batter's box, and the ball ended up being a strike. And he got up and he was laughing. The opposition was laughing. One of the guys said, "How are we supposed to hit this?" I have never seen a major league team dominated so much. And you know what? I think they actually enjoyed it. It became a contest. Hey, who can put this thing in play?
And that's Terry Collins, former general manager of the Mets. Was he talking about Josh Tolley?
Yeah, Josh Tolley caught the majority of my starts.
What did he? Because I was reading that somebody else, Tim Wakefield, knuckleballer, had like his own catcher because there were so few people who could catch it. How did Tolley feel about catching your knuckleball?
Yeah, and Doug Mirabelli was his private catcher, and so
a private catcher.
Yeah. So he was. They call themselves they're like our caddy, like in golf. So,
well, they even famously traded him or something, and then nobody else on the team for Tim Wakefield.
That's right.
And then he
came back on a police escort and got there in time for the game and all that. Well, similarly, I got when I was traded to the Blue Jays, Tolley was part of the trade because he
kind of was your caddy.
Yeah, he was. He caught the majority of my most successful years, and he was really, really good at it.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Blake Farmer. Our guest is R.A. Dickey. Listen, I'm about 12 hours out of knowing this fact here. But the pitch is so unpredictable that the catcher can miss it easily. Come off the tip of the glove, go between their legs, wherever, and so you get stolen bases, right? Is that the issue?
You can, yeah, and it's hard for an umpire, right, to see where it crosses the zone. Is it a strike? Is it a ball? And so you've just got to have a catcher that can present that ball to the umpire in a way that, gives you the benefit of the doubt. And he was great at that. Now, there's been others that I'd thrown to that actually asked out of the lineup when I was pitching, like, I don't want to catch. They would say, I don't want to catch. Please catch the backup catcher because I don't want to look like a fool on national TV.
Yeah.
And, I'll never forget, in Seattle, we had a Japanese catcher, and they've never seen a knuckleball in Japan and the Japanese leagues, really. And he tried to catch me and just could not do it. I think we had 4 pass balls and 3 wild pitches in 2 innings. It was his name was Kenji Jojima. I'll never forget. And he refused to wear the oversized mitt. So the catchers, I would come into spring training with a mitt that was like double the size of an ordinary catcher's mitt because that would give them the best chance to harness the pitch.
You'd bring them a catcher's mitt?
I'd bring them. I was sponsored by Rawlings Gloves, and they would make me. It's called the Pro Sparks model. They would make me an oversized mitt, and I would take 2 of them to every spring training I ever went and give them to the catchers that I was going to throw to.
Wow. Why don't more people throw it? Obviously, it's so effective, and I even found some people who are almost like beer league ball players who learn to pitch it and maybe even get a little time, in minors or something. So like you don't have to be Anyway, it's just so different from everything else. But kind of anyone could learn it theoretically. Why don't more people do it?
Well, I'm going to give you the English literature analytical answer because that's how I look at things. It's first of all, it's really hard to do. I mean, it's hard to consistently control an uncontrollable pitch, right? So, and it's also a comment on the human condition in the sense that people who are evaluating you, they want a trustworthy product. So if they put you on the mound, they've got to trust that you can throw strikes, get big league hitters out, the best hitters in the world. You got to be able to get them out. And if you have a game where the thing is moving all over the place and people are running around the base, like you're not very trustworthy. And that happens a lot. Like you've got to accept the ugliness of the pitch if you're a general manager or a manager or a pitching coach. And certain guys have the stomach for it and certain guys don't. Terry did. And, other managers that I had did. There's some that don't. There's some general managers out there that wouldn't touch a knuckleball pitcher just because you cannot predict how good it's going to be metrically.
Well, and if you're off and maybe it's spinning a little too much, the thing's basically just like a lob to get crushed out of the park, right?
Yeah, well, I hold the record for the most home runs given up in a major league game. I'm at the top of the list. And guess who else is there? Tim Wakefield, another knuckleballer. Yeah. So baseball's 150 years old, and I'm number one, right? I've won a Cy Young, yes, but I tell everybody I also hold the major league record in the history of the major leagues for most home runs given up in a game and most wild pitches in an inning, both as a knuckleballer. So you got to kind of have a good sense of humor if you're going to throw the pitch too.
Well, it's this very small group that has thrown the knuckleball, and they, my sense was from the book, kind of helped mentor you from time to time. I'm not sure how often y'all were talking and meeting up, but are you helping any knuckleballers out there now?
I will help whoever wants help. I mean, it's like I'm so indebted to my Jedi council, if you will, of knuckleball help was Charlie Huff, Tim Wakefield, and Phil Necro. Those three guys were on my speed dial. I would send them video. I would call them at all hours of the night. They would want to talk about my outings. They would watch my games, and they would give me great feedback to make adjustments from one outing to the other because, like I said before, I couldn't turn to my pitching coach and say, hey, man, what's going on here? I have no feel. I could send a video to Phil Necro, and he could send me back, hey, man, this is what's happening. You can fix this in your next bullpen before your next start, no problem. Just do this, this, and this. And that helped with the human condition part that I was telling you about. I'm always fighting uphill as a knuckleball pitcher to remain because people don't trust it. And I had to be consistent. And if I wasn't consistent, I wasn't going to keep getting opportunities. And so having those guys around helped me be consistent, helped me from start to start be consistent. So I do help whoever asks. And I've worked with a number of clubs as a consultant when they've had guys that were petering out, if you will, as a conventional pitcher. I would go up and fly in and try to help some of the guys that they wanted to turn into knuckleballers to see if they might have a chance at doing what I did.
Well, I saw this guy, Matt Waldron of the Padres. Like, is my understanding right that what's different, he's doing knuckleball but pitching more conventional pitches at the same time too? What is that working?
It's working. I think my mentors would say that it will never be as effective unless you commit to it at least 75% of the time.
Really?
It's just such a hard pitch to control that you need that feel in your hand. You need the feel of the baseball in that grip consistently to be able to do what you want to do with the pitch. He is an exception to the degree that he has an uncanny ability to use it as an out pitch. So he still throws 94 miles an hour. Most people that throw knuckleballs, they turn to knuckleballs because they don't do the other things well anymore, right? Like it's a pitch of desperation, really, for a major league pitcher. For him, it's just a kind of a bullet in his revolver.
Almost a trick pitch. Or
yeah, just to throw the hitter off, give him a different sight, and it's effective. It's effective. It's hard to be really effective with that pitch. And no traditional knuckleballer would call him a knuckleballer.
I see.
They would call him a conventional pitcher that throws a knuckleball.
Well, so you mentioned that people. It's a pitch of desperation, and the desperation you had is that you had this missing ligament, right? it's something you could have had repaired, perhaps, but you never did.
No, I was asymptomatic. Like I never had any arm problems. To this day, I'm 51 years old, and I just threw in the Mets alumni game about a month ago at Citi Field and felt great. So, I was never hurt. I never had any pain, so I never fixed it. My desperation was the combination of the condition that I had where I did not have the ligament, and everybody thought that I was eventually going to break down as a conventional pitcher.
But you never did.
But I never did. And also the fact that I was drafted as a hard-throwing righty that threw 95 miles an hour with a great changeup. And that started to, through general attrition, just started to go down every spring training. I went from 95 to 93, from 93 to 91, 91 to 88. And when you go down in velocity, the margin of error starts to really shrink with these guys who are really, really good at hitting the baseball. And so I was at a point in my career, it was kind of, just that inflection point of, I'm probably not going to ever be a conventional pitcher in the major leagues again. So I either need to accept the fact that Oral Hershiser and Buck Showalter are giving me a chance to be a knuckleball pitcher and not have an ego about it and go down there and learn my butt off to try to be the best knuckleball guy I can be, or I need to probably go do something else.
Yeah.
But if earlier in my career I would had too much of an ego to be able to, I would have been like, this is just one team. There's 28 other ones out there that would give me a chance, right? And if I wasn't in that stage in my development as a human being, I wouldn't have been able to embrace the challenge of doing that full time.
Well, we're going to take our seventh inning stretch here and be right back with R.A. Dickey to talk baseball culture in this town. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. I'm sitting with one of the greatest baseball players to ever come out of Nashville. In the studio today, R.A. Dickey, the first guy to ever win the top prize for pitching as a knuckleballer. He tells the story of transitioning to this finicky pitch out of necessity in a book from 2012 called Wherever I Wind Up. That same year, he was crowned with the Cy Young Award. R.A., you've played all over. You spent a lot of time in New York with the Mets, for the Blue Jays in Toronto, short stints elsewhere with the Rangers, and all over. Did you always base life out of Nashville?
I did. I was born and raised here, and my wife and I always made our off-season headquarters here. So if I wasn't in spring training or playing in a season or playing winter ball in Venezuela or other places in Latin America, I would be here as much as I could. I loved it. My families were here. Our families are here.
Why does that make sense? I mean, you hear of that kind of thing happening. I don't know if it's more common in baseball or other sports, but it seems to those of us who just have a 9-to-5 job kind of crazy.
You mean just the travel?
Well, that you wouldn't live in the town where you play 80 games a year.
Yeah, well, that's for me, it was all about comfort. Like I was comfortable here. I grew up in this community, had people that cared about me. I could walk into Vanderbilt or Lipscomb and work out anytime I want. Like I just had a lot of people who cared about me here and my wife. And so, and we were starting to have children as well. And so you had both sets of parents are here, like all that. But for the most part, I've had such a great experience in the Nashville community that I never wanted to live anywhere else.
How close are you to other MLB stars? I mean, we have another Cy Young Award winner, David Price, who grew up in Murfreesboro. Mookie Betts, certainly still doing great. Are you close with other major leaguers who are from Nashville?
From Nashville, I would like David Price and I have the same agent, and ironically enough, we both won the Cy Young in the same year with the same agent. So he was the American League.
That's right, because there's
and
one
I was
for
the
each
National.
league.
Yeah, that's right, and I was the National League. It was really neat. But we're good friends. I don't think he probably would. We don't hang out all the time.
Right.
I have a lot of friends that are here. I'll tell you what. I'm better friends with some teammates that want to get here.
Is that right?
I have helped probably a dozen of my previous teammates, find places in Nashville to raise their families and to move here and to be here. And and I'm pretty good friends with a lot of those guys.
Obviously, they want to be neighbors with you, but what is the big draw for them about Nashville? I asked this, just like you, somebody who grew up here. I didn't think of Nashville as particularly special. I mean, I want to be here. I don't want to live anywhere else. But I've always wondered, what's the big draw that for somebody? It's like, you don't like the place you grew up and want to be there. Like, what do you find and people are coming for?
Well, I'm not sure if it's that they don't like the place. I think that they were from as much as they like it more here. So they come here, and it depends on the guy. Some people come maybe for political reasons. Some people come because they played here for the sounds and got engrossed in the community. And the community here is incredibly benevolent and the experiences that they have been real traditional Southern experiences here.
I see.
And a lot of them are from the Northeast or Northwest, and they're like, golly, I want to raise my kids here. This is incredible. There's a church on every corner. People open doors for their wives. Like there's all kinds of stuff that's still integrated into our culture that they really respect and want to raise their children around. And so you get a lot of influx of kids. And most of them have come through at some point and played, either as a traveling minor leaguer that comes through Nashville, gets a taste of the Nashville city life and loves it, the Gulch, all the places around there, and wants to move their family here. Or they've played for the Sounds and they love it.
Did you want any of your kids to get big into baseball?
That's a good question. My son, so I have two daughters at the top, 24 and 23. They're both married now, and I have two sons. One is a senior at CPA, Christ Presbyterian Academy, and the other's an 8th grader. My senior son is going to play baseball on a scholarship at Jacksonville State University next year. So he grew up coming to the clubhouse with me and, meeting the big leaguers and really loving it. My other son hates baseball.
Would he have also kind of missed his formative years, while you were playing?
Yeah, I would bring him in, but he was so small that he probably doesn't have a ton of memories about it. My senior now just ate it up. Ate meals with us, was in the locker room after games. I'd bring them all in and just really loved it. And, was a byproduct, his success, a lot of his success probably is a byproduct of his involvement early in that life.
Well, because I suppose the motivation is half the deal, right? If you're just willing to get out there and keep with it. And
that's right. Yeah.
Let's just assume he's not going to listen to this. How do you feel about him, going hard for baseball?
Well, I want to love him well, and to love my son well means to try to identify the gifts that he has that might correspond with being a good baseball player or might not, but try to cultivate those gifts in him. And so I've had to practice a lot of that. We try to not talk about, and I coach him, which is really hard. When you're coaching your son. And people,
so you kind of help out with the CPA baseball team?
So I'm the pitching coach for the CPA baseball team.
You are the pitching.
Yeah.
CPA's pitching coach is R.A. Dickey.
I'm the pitching coach for CPA, and we have a great head coach and a great place to play. And I also coached my son in his summer league team. So the genesis of all that was just, I'd missed so much of his life. I wanted to be with him, right? That was my motivation. I could care less if he was good or not. Now, he ended up being pretty good, and
how about that?
I'm okay with it, but I don't want that to define who he is.
I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest is Knuckleball King, R.A. Dickey, and maybe that's how I should have introduced you. CPA pitching coach, R.A. Dickey.
Knuckleball King sounds good,
but
too.
You like Knuckleball King, yeah. But it doesn't have the alliteration, because even though Knuckleball has a K in it, you don't get that. But as a literature guy, you can. Anyway, all right. We started this episode kind of talking about risks, putting your major league career on the line, as you're finally kind of making headway climbing Kilimanjaro to raise money to fight human trafficking. There's, of course, the Missouri River in Omaha where you nearly drowned. I wonder what kind of risks you find yourself taking these days.
Oh, man. I think the risks I take now are in relationship mostly. like inviting people into my space. Those are the risks that I take now.
Because you were so closed off growing up.
Yeah, and protective and inauthentic and just all the things that now I look back and I'm thinking, man, I missed out on so much probably because that fear that I had early that nobody would want anything to do with me because of my trauma if I shared it. I have found that that's the opposite, right? Like the more that you reveal about your struggles, a lot of times the deeper you can go in relationship. And so, and I mean, even with my own wife, like the risks I take with her, letting her into who I fully am called to be. But I would say those risks are the risks that I take now. Has nothing to do with anything outside of that piece. And I mean with my children, letting them know, I mean, they've read the book. We've talked about it as a family. Like they know what's out there. They know the work I do for human trafficking. They know about grooming. They know about how to communicate, like all those things, the byproduct of the risks that I take in relationship because of the work that I've done and the love that people have poured into me has yielded a lot of fruit. And so that motivates me to keep taking risks.
It seems like something that's almost antithetical to what people think of as kind of like locker room culture, right? Like, have you been able to impart that, in kind of the macho world of pro sports?
Maybe to a degree. I think, in my experience as a professional, especially after the book came out, a lot of my teammates, I'll never forget sitting in the parking lot of spring training bawling my eyes out because I was scared to death. Sports Illustrated had just released the excerpt for the book. Everybody in there I knew probably had read it. And I was about to walk into that culture that you just described. And I was petrified, right? Like I was crying in my car. I had to compose myself and walk in. And when I did, the opposite of what I thought would happen happened. I had 3 teammates come up to me and share their experience about being abused the very first day that came out. And it was like an epiphany for me, like, okay, well, this could be part of my mission this side of eternity is, how to be vulnerable with my story, still have good, healthy boundaries, but be vulnerable with my story in a way that can, call people into who God has authentically created them to be. And so I was thankful for that, and all of them said to a man, it's the first time I've ever told anybody. And I was like floored. I went home I was in shock the rest of the day. I couldn't even hardly practice. But it was a life-changing moment for me that day.
Well, I was going to ask you about, David Brooks talks about people needing kind of like a second mountain to climb as they transition out of midlife and stuff. I mean, it sounds like you've kind of found yours or some version of it.
Well, I think, yeah. And I think for me, it's a range, a mountain range. Like I'm trying to figure out, what's my full potential as a human being, before I go. How deeply can I get into relationship with my wife? What have I missed out on? How can I call her into a place where she feels the same freedom that I do? Like all these are little small mountains in my range, right? And my son's going to go off to college, with access to the internet and teammates that probably don't believe the same way he does. And like, that's a mountain for me. Like, how do I communicate well and keep him on the path? All these are just really great challenges that I feel called to, really speak into. And I never, if some of the stuff that I went through in that book would not have occurred, I would have never had the vernacular to be able to articulate it to anybody. So I'm so thankful for that. That's the weird, paradigm, right? Is like, how can you be thankful that you got abused? And how can you be thankful? Well, the thankful part is the weaponry and the equipment that I was able to develop because people poured into me. And that's special for me.
Now you're sharing it everywhere, including today on the show. I really appreciate you making time for this interview. R.A. Dickey, thanks for being on This Is Nashville.
It's a privilege.
And thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. We typically air these profile interviews on Mondays, and they're all throughout that podcast feed. Check one out at thisisnashville.org, or you can watch at youtube.com/@WPLN. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini, directed by Tasha A.F. Limley. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The conversation doesn't have to end. You can comment. Tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message with your phone, 615-751-2500. We're also usually on Instagram. We'll even put up a video of R.A. Dickey here showing you how to hold that knuckleball pitch if you want to go try it in the backyard. That'll be at thisisnashville_WPLN. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.